Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. I am your host, Hayleigh Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production. Today, I have a really great episode about building a social media strategy with Tamar Lyons, the founder of Lyons Digital Marketing. Lyons Digital Marketing is a social media management and content agency with a mission to transform the way people communicate in the world. In the last year alone, Lyons Digital Marketing has created hundreds of millions of organic views across the board for their clients with their content on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And this helps them gain visibility and leverage social media for their business. So this episode really will answer a lot of your common questions, like how much do I need to post on social media? What do I need to post? How do I even post? How do I show up authentically? How do I convert from just posting randomly to actually getting clients? We talk about all of this in this episode, and it is just a really great one for anyone who's early on in business, all the way to if you're more advanced. And so after this interview, I actually connected with Tamar and joined the coaching program that she is in. And so we have been chatting a lot more, and she has so much great information to share. So if you are ready to hire on Tamar, or you're just looking to connect with her to ask her some social media questions, definitely go and connect with her on Instagram. That is the best place. But she has so much knowledge to share, and I'm just so thankful that she came on the Employee to Boss podcast to share it all with us. So let's get right into the episode. Hey, Tamar, thank you so much for joining me on the Employee to Boss podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to learn more about you and social media strategy. Right now, we're halfway through the year, a little bit more than halfway. So I feel like this is the time where people kind of have to reevaluate what they're doing on social media. And I think that this conversation will be really powerful for anyone who's like thinking about what to start with on social media or where to go, things like that. So if you want to start off by telling us more about yourself, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, totally. So I am based in Toronto, Canada. And I am an entrepreneur. I started Lyons Digital Marketing, which is a social media marketing agency. We do all things social media, content creation, all of that, with a really heavy set in strategy as it relates to content and your social media marketing. And so a little bit about me is that I actually started in the television industry. So my background is in radio and television. I have a degree in radio and television and media production. And when I was in school, one of the things that we focused on quite a bit was social media. But back then, I think it must have been like 10 years ago. It's crazy to think about. Wow. Back then, social media was not what it was today. And so I remember actually one of my professors telling me about how, we're going to be working jobs that don't exist by the time we graduate. And that is like so true for me. And so I was working in the television industry. I thought that was my dream. I thought that was, the perfect place for me. I was able to help people tell stories, help that, I was working in documentary. So a lot of what we did was interviewing people and asking them about themselves and really helping them shape their messaging and help them express themselves. And then kind of as time went on, I realized that the industry is a little bit difficult for just for a bunch of things. I felt a little like creativity wise, I wasn't getting all the opportunities that I wanted. And, we can get into that later. But essentially, I just realized I wanted to tell people stories. And for me, the TV industry wasn't that place for me. And so I easily transitioned into social media because that is a great space where, you're working with people directly and helping them share their stories was really my goal and what I always wanted to do. So I started working in social media. The agency has been around for the last 3.5 years. It's almost 4 years, which is crazy to think about because it feels like it was just yesterday. And yeah, I really just help entrepreneurs and business owners show up on social media in a way that feels authentic to them, helps them tell their story, and ultimately helps them increase their visibility and boost their sales in their marketing for social media.
That is awesome. My business has also been around for, that 3.5 year mark. And like thinking back, I'm like, wow, it feels like forever ago, but it also feels like yesterday.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, there's so many things I think that happen in that early stage of business where it's like, you zoom through it because, you start off and it's like, first of all, there's all the like imposter syndrome and they're like, you're shifting from actually like, if you came from a corporate world or from, being, working for someone else and starting your own thing, there's all the mindset things and actual like structures of being a freelancer and building a business and all the things. And then, the second year you go in and you start actually like building things and delivering for your clients. And then as you move on, so maybe, like the third year, the years past that, you start to find this like safety and this like, I don't want to say a plateau, but it's almost like you're comfortable because it's not new anymore. But then also you kind of want to find the fun things so that it's exciting and you can create that newness. So totally. Yeah. I can't believe that it's been that long.
Yeah, and that is such a good point where it's a lot at the beginning. And when you're working with clients, what point of business are they typically in? Are they new and like just starting out, or do they already have brand values, mission, goals, things like that?
So most of our clients, I would say, especially now, are seven-figure business owners. So they definitely do have their brand and their values and they have an established brand. However, for a long time, that was not the only level of clients that we were serving. We definitely were working with brands and businesses that were, more towards the middle stages. I wouldn't say towards the beginning, because to be quite honest with you, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, I don't think that business owners should be outsourcing their social media right at the beginning when they're starting. I don't think it's necessarily a worthwhile investment for them. And that's why we kind of, work with business owners who are more established and have that established brand, because for them, and, my belief is that social media is really about visibility, and there's, getting new eyes on your business. You want to be able to actually serve those people. And so if you're just starting your business and you don't necessarily have the capacity yet to serve new people, then kind of what's the point of reaching millions of people if, you can't actually serve them? So yeah, it's a hot take. We can get into that as well. But I think we definitely work with businesses who do have more of like a brand value and a visual identity.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, because if you don't start off with creating what you want your social media to look like you won't know how to even outsource that to anyone. Before I outsource anything, I like to learn about it, and then I'm like, I hate this, I'm going to outsource it. So I at least try and know what is supposed to happen, so when I outsource it, I'm not like blindly trusting someone with whatever.
That's actually great. It's so true. And I got that advice from somebody recently because I was of the belief of like, if I didn't know how to do something, I just had to outsource it. But then, like you just said, somebody else said to me, no, you need to know the basics and then decide that you hate it and then outsource it. So that way you're not just like blindly delegating, right? Like real delegation is like, I know what has to happen and I just need this person to make sure that it happens. However, if they're not there, if they're on vacation, I can still, go in and make sure everything's kind of going the way that I need it to. So it's so true. I made a lot of mistakes not knowing that early on.
We all did. So, and thinking back to early on in business, can you talk a little bit about how to build out your social media strategy? I know at first a lot of it is trial and error, quite honestly. You have to post and see what works, see what doesn't. But can you tell us like what strategy is and how entrepreneurs can start with it?
Yeah, totally. So what I would say is when it comes to your social media strategy, the first thing you're going to want to do is identify who you're trying to reach. A lot of that comes, like you said, with trial and error for sure, like seeing what connects to those people. But even before you post anything or, come up with any kind of ideas, I would say is get very clear on who your target audience is. So, who are they? What type of businesses are they in? Are they even business owners? Maybe they are, whatever your market is, depending on your product or your service. Find who you want to reach and actually do some research. So for example, let's say I was just working on a strategy for a client and they serve postpartum women. And so they go and find postpartum women and interview them and understand like, what are their needs? What are they looking for? How do they like to be spoken to? What are the biggest issues that they experience? What do they, what do they need? What do they want? What are they trying to achieve? And get it from them. And I think also another thing is that businesses who already have clientele, but maybe aren't on social media yet, I think they have an advantage because you're already serving clients. So who are you? So interview your clients, ask them about what their needs are. Why do they come to work with you? What do they like about working with your company? What do they like? What are they looking for? What goals do they have? And I think number one, it's really about getting an understanding of your audience. Then I would take that a little bit further and understand how they make decisions. And so kind of get into like, you know, it's buyer types. And this kind of leads into like marketing and sales psychology, but like not even for the sake of selling to them. It's really for the sake of understanding them, right? What motivates them to make decisions. And really that can help you understand what type of content you want to be creating. So to give an example, my audience, and I know this really activates my audience, they're driver buyers. They love, 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 love content that is like results based. And it's like, you're here and here's how you can get to the here. And if you want this result, these are the steps you have to take and here's how you get it. And so when I produce content like that, it really speaks to them. But that I've only understood that because number one, I've been in business for, 3.5 years and I've seen the people who I've dealt with. And number two, because I've been posting consistently, constantly, adjusting my strategy and seeing what's worked and what hasn't worked and knowing that that's, one of the things that's what I've identified and taken from the data and analytics that I've looked at from my social media strategy. So that's number one, is definitely audience. Mm-hmm. Number two is definitely going to be, when it comes to a strategy, you're really going to want to look at, and this, again, it's interesting. You want to look at what you can actually execute. So a lot of people right off the bat think that, a content schedule is a content strategy, which it's not. And people think that, okay, if I post 5 times a day for the next 5 weeks, then I'm going to get incredible results and it's going to be the best. I'm going to start selling out my offers. I'm going to get, I'm going to reach all my business goals. But then we burn ourselves out really quickly. And the quality of the content that you're putting out actually isn't resonating and it's actually not effective in any kind of way. So I definitely think you want to look at what is reasonable for you to create. What can you actually create and what can you actually create consistently? And then just start from there. So it doesn't have to be a huge amount. I would say, anywhere from 3 times a week to, once a day can be, a sweet spot. It really matters on your capacity. And then create a system for you to consistently create content. Maybe that's, 1 hour on every Monday of every week. You're going to plan out all your content for the week and just go ahead and do that. And I think that's really important to work into your strategy is what are you actually committing to producing and then holding yourself accountable. So those 2 things I would say are like the most important if you're just starting out is number 1, who am I marketing to? And number 2, how much of myself and my time can I commit to consistently marketing towards them?
Yeah, consistency is super important. Thank you so much for bringing that up because I totally have heard that before when I started my business where like post multiple times a day, be posting all the time. And then I was like so burnt out. I had to take like weeks off of posting, right? I was like, I'm confused. Like, I just need a minute. This was maybe like first 6 months of business, right? It was just a lot going on. And so I like how you say like 3 times a week, once a day, like whatever you can agree to in yourself, that's what you should be posting. Another question I have with this is your Instagram is like absolutely gorgeous, right? Branding is on point. Messaging is on point. Like literally everything. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to your Instagram, obviously, so everyone can go check it out. But
thank you.
For anyone who's starting out, how important is it to have like a gorgeous Instagram?
Okay, I love that you brought up the messaging part of that because this is all really recent for me as well. So how important is it to have a gorgeous Instagram? I would say it's not. It's not. It is and it's not. Okay, so if that's your focus, if you get stuck in perfectionism, saying I need it to be perfect, I need it to be the most beautiful feed, and then that stops you from taking action, then in that case, I would say like no. Like if you're looking to achieve like it's going to hold you back because you don't feel that it's gorgeous and beautiful and on brand and aesthetic and all the things, then I would say you're putting too much importance on it. But on the same kind of, on the flip side, there is an aspect of brand that is communicated when you do have a professional and cohesive and a look that people can associate with you. And so I would say messaging is going to be number 1, first and foremost. And then the beauty and the aesthetic of it is kind of going to follow from that. And so it's interesting because I actually did a total rebrand in May. And it's also been very like DIY. It was very intuitive to me. It felt what I was doing before. And this is kind of why I say they're both important. I didn't have my messaging down pat. I wasn't actually clear on it. And so my brand colors used to be pink and it was very like Victoria's Secret vibes and very, very loving. And it was, if anyone's familiar with like brand archetypes, it was very much like the lover. But then I would get on sales calls with people and to talk to them about our services. And I'm presenting us as, a total, like as the ruler archetype, which is so different. And you can't, it just, things were not cohesive because the messaging and the visual identity did not add up with each other. And so I actually just went through that rebrand that I really focused on getting my messaging down pat. What are my content pillars? What are my brand pillars? What do I stand for? What's our mission? Like all those things, I really like took a look at it. And then I created the visual identity. Because if I'm like, okay, I'm about power and confidence and just like taking up space, to me, like that's boldness. Boldness is a really important thing. So I love, the big, like in your face letters, the black and the white and the neutrals and that kind of thing to me was very important. But what I would say is that I actually don't focus on making it look curated and nice. I focus on just making sure that it's like uniform. So what I do normally when I plan out my content, and this could be, I hope this is helpful to people who, are concerned about having a really nice cohesive feed, is I don't say, okay, I need to post in this order. It has to be white and then gray and then black and then, all those things. What I do is I think about all of my ideas, whatever I want to talk about. I put those in like a Google Doc or sometimes even in the notes on my phone. And then I'll just like kind of have like a order of colors, and then I'll create the content based on the colors for, what follows that. So I don't allow myself to get caught up in making sure that it looks beautiful and that visually it's great. I care about it. Like it is, kind of on the back burner, but it's not the number one priority. The number one priority is making sure that my messaging's on point and that I'm communicating what I want to be communicating.
That is awesome. I love that, you just went through that so you could share so much advice on like how you did it, right? Did you work with a coach, or was this all, like you said, intuitive, like just some deep soul searching for your business?
So I did work with a coach, not specifically to branding. I've always been working with business and mindset coaches throughout the entire transition from, working in the television industry to starting my business. I always wanted to have mentorship. And so I knew I wanted to do a rebrand, and I knew I wanted to work on messaging. And so I was working with a coach who really helped me solidify my messaging and understand what I needed to communicate. And, she really helped me understand that, okay, I know you want to do a rebrand, but before you do it, let's do it right. And we really kind of dove into the aspects that, go into an actual effective rebrand. And so we did that. And then because I have a background in, content creation and a little bit in graphic design and all the things, I was able to execute it myself. But down the line, I definitely will be looking to invest in proper, brand strategy and all of that for sure. Because I see the value in it. It's changed. And the people who come up to me, even in my real life, like even like, it's not even people who could be clients. It's like, like my best friend's boyfriend or like my friend's mom that have all come to me and said, I love the energy that I get from your Instagram and from your branding, from your website, from, what I see on socials. And I see it also, from clients and from people coming in, because we do get a lot of leads from Instagram, people just saying, I love your page. It speaks to me. I totally resonate with it. And I really tie that back to the rebrand because I feel like it's communicating me and my essence and my authenticity, and that connects with people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So really, for anyone listening who's like, oh my gosh, I want to get to the point that Tamar is at, like, you have to go through what you just said, your pink, bubbly branding to what feels right to you now. And so it's really a journey.
Yeah. And this was earlier when we were talking about, outsourcing and those things. I hired a social media manager because I didn't have time to do my own marketing, but because I didn't have my messaging in place, she was amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like I loved working with her and we're friends now, and I totally would hire her again if I ever needed her. But because I didn't have my messaging in place, it just kind of felt like it wasn't me. I wasn't being communicated, like myself, my essence wasn't being communicated through my socials. And I think people could feel that. Yes, I was putting out consistent content, but because I didn't have proper messaging, it just wasn't landing in the same way. Versus now I can post less, but because it packs more of a punch, it has more of my personality in it, it's way more effective. So before outsourcing anything in social, you need to have like at least your messaging, your values, what it is you're trying to communicate, and get that down pat, and then outsource that to somebody else to kind of execute on your behalf.
I love that. I really love that. I want to talk about authenticity as well, like how you show up authentically on social media, and then how that will help you, like you're saying, your potential clients are coming to you and they're like, oh my gosh, I love your brand. So first, let's like break down authenticity. Like, what does that truly mean on social media?
It's being yourself. So cliche. It's being yourself, but it's more than just being yourself. It's knowing what you stand for and showcasing that on your social media, because we're past the point where, people buy from brands or want to work with brands or, go to certain stores or certain restaurants just because they like the food or they like the products. We now, especially like, in the digital age with all access to everything, right? We make decisions because we care about what we're being a part of. So like when I go to a store and I know that, this store has this brand value because I've learned that from their social media, then I feel like I'm a part of something when I go to that store, when I go to that restaurant. I feel connected. So authenticity is it's not just being yourself. It's showing up in a way that communicates who you are, what you stand for, and that it's almost like unapologetic confidence in that you can't, like, this is who you are, and it doesn't matter what other people think.
Now, how can you put that into your strategy, like your posts and things like that? Maybe you know exactly like who you are and what you want to portray, but then how do you make that into like a social media graphic?
Okay, so it's actually really funny because I did this on a strategy call with a client the other day. What I would do if I was actually like doing this is think about all the things that bother you in the industry that you're in. What are your hot takes? What are things that really frustrate you with the industry? Because that's going to help you identify what you actually do believe in by understanding what bothers you. And it'll get you kind of like fired up. So, right. So for example, one of the things that really bothers me in the social media space is the fact that like people really think it's about like quantity and not quality. That's like a big thing that bothers me. So like, because of that, I'm like, okay, so like one of my beliefs that I'm going to talk about, that I'm going to include in this strategy and how I bring it in, is going to be talking about like how to create quality and, all the things around that. And I think it's obviously it's very different. Every brand, every business, they're going to have things that you believe in and don't believe in. So if you can, you want to get that passion behind it, it's a lot easier to think about what you agree with when you think about what you disagree with, what you don't like in your industry. So I would definitely say, look at those things, write them down, come up like actually with maybe 3 or 4 core beliefs and your take on it. And then just like experiment with different content types, whether that's in your stories, whether that's on Instagram Reels, TikTok videos, whatever it is. Just like be yourself, but think about them from the lens of the messaging that you create when you think about what it is that you actually do stand for.
I like that a lot. And that goes into my next question that I was going to ask is, there are so many platforms out there, right? There's Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, like there's like countless. And
now we have Threads.
Threads, which I think Threads is actually super fun. I hated Twitter. I deleted Twitter like 4 years ago. And so I kind of feel like Threads is bringing me back to when I was in high school and like spending hours and hours on Twitter. Like, I have to control this. And so, but super fun. When it comes to like building out your strategy and making it authentically you, how do you deal with like talking to your clients about which platforms to be on? Because I hear a lot of people try to be on everything, but that goes back to consistency, right? That's probably not sustainable for someone who's just starting.
Totally. So, I mean, it actually goes back to something that I was thinking of. Actually, we didn't note it before when you asked me about strategy, but what I would say is like, you also want to identify your goals. And so that I would say is going to be first and foremost when you talk about what platforms you actually want to be on. So if your goals are visibility, for example, right, you just want to boost your brand visibility, brand awareness, you want more people to know about you, then what I would say is that, in that case, if visibility is your goal, then being in more places gives you more opportunity to be more visible, right? To boost your awareness. So then I would say, okay, then you're going to want to worry about being on different platforms. And then you can kind of come up with like a repurposing strategy. So you're not spending all of your time like creating content for TikTok and then for Instagram and then for Pinterest and for Twitter and for like all the different places. You really want to, like, I would just think about what your goal is first and foremost. If your goal is conversions and you want to get clients first and foremost, then what I would definitely do is not worry about being everywhere and really worry about where are my clients? Where are they right now? And so in many, many cases, that relates back to, what we spoke about when it comes to knowing your audience. In many cases, they may be on Instagram as their primary platform. They might be on TikTok as their primary platform. They might be on LinkedIn. But I think it all really relates back to, number one, who is your audience and what are you trying to achieve? And as I think as you kind of get more comfortable and you start creating more consistently, you start to find platforms that you love. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about business. So for example, I love LinkedIn. And it's funny because it's really not like underused right now, because LinkedIn is known as like the place where you network and you meet people and you post your resume and all the things. But for me, LinkedIn, I use it as a place to build my authority. I'm not even looking for clients, and I get tons of business through LinkedIn because people know me as an authority. So I think I don't worry about LinkedIn so much because, again, it's I use it almost like Twitter, where I'll just like share updates and people appreciate it. It's very unfiltered for me, which I guess is fresh because most people don't use it for that. But I will say is that it's really about, what's fun for you, what's easy, what can you create, and like where is your target audience? Where are they hanging out? And get yourself on those platforms.
LinkedIn is really fun. I see a lot of business people on there doing similar things, like the really long blog posts of, this is why this, and this. And they do get really good engagement. And it's a place that I've been posting more as well. And it's been super fun. I think just anytime I get to play with a new platform that maybe isn't so photo heavy, I'm like, wow, this is easy, right? Anytime I don't have to create a graphic is a good day.
And that's what we're seeing with Threads too, right? Is that I think, and it's an interesting mindset piece. I was chatting about this yesterday on my stories, is that I hear from so many business owners every day that like the reason they're not creating content is because it's so hard and it's so difficult. They don't know what to create. That's like the belief they all have about themselves. But now I'm on Threads and I'm seeing them. And this is the most like authentic place where they're having the time of their life. They're being funny, like they're showcasing their personality. And they're totally like, they have an idea, they type it out and they post it on Threads. So what I'm seeing is that we don't actually have a problem with content ideation and content curation. We have a problem with the fact that we just think everything has to be perfect and beautiful in this nicely curated graphic before we actually post anything. And I think that's the opportunity here on Threads isn't just, okay, it's a cool new platform to use. It's also a place to get more comfortable allowing yourself to be seen and allowing your message to be taking up space. And that I think can translate onto every platform. So I love what's happening from like, just seeing the shift that people are making as it relates to content creation on Threads.
That makes so much sense. And you're totally right. Everyone has those ideas, but sometimes putting it into something that they have to make perfect or look visually appealing is what holds them back. That right there is like such a key point.
It's so true. And I think another part of it too, because I would say that's one of the biggest issues and why people work with us is because there is so much perfectionism in our content, especially if you are like a mission-driven entrepreneur who like you're trying to do something or you're service-based and it's like you're putting yourself out there. We get so caught up in it. And it's actually funny. I have some clients, I'm under NDAs with them, so I won't say who they are, but they have like millions of followers on TikTok. And they tell me, and I was shocked when they tell me this, and I've heard it from 2 separate clients in the last couple of weeks too. They don't watch their content after we create it. Sometimes they approve it. They said, we approve it. We don't even watch it because they're like, I say it, we'll follow your direction. We use your pieces and all the advice that you give us in the direction, but we won't watch it because if we watch it, then we get too perfectionist about it and say, oh, I could have done this better. I should have pronounced the word this way and not that way. And you get into this cycle of perfectionism. And that's what really holds us back is that, with our content, like good enough is perfect. Like good is good enough, And so I think when it comes, especially to video content and all the things, like we have to identify within ourselves when we do create content is how much of this is it important? Like, if you're giving misinformation, then of course you need to change it, right? If you if you're like 3 steps to building a business and then one of the tips isn't helpful or it's totally out of line, then okay, go back and make the edit. But, if your hair was like a little bit here and it wasn't here, and, like those things, you need to really look at it and assess it and say, okay, do I really need to be spending time doing this, or is it good enough? And so with TikTok, with short form video, I always say, give yourself like 2 minutes per video. Come up with a list of ideas. And when you're filming, literally just give yourself 2 minutes. And that's a cutoff point, because after that, then we start to get perfectionist, because there's always going to be ways that we can perfect and make it better.
Those are really the best clients to have. Honestly, that's like the dream client, right? Where they just trust you and they're like, beautiful, love it. And you're like, yeah, because you're confident in yourself, right? And your work, and you know what's best for them. They should agree with that. So that's awesome, and makes a lot of sense with just being like, yep, this is good, this is great, love it, post it. Because you're coming up with so much content, right? It's not like that's the only piece of content you're ever going to create. If one is like a little bit, not perfect, like you were saying, it's going to be okay. The world is going to go on.
And usually those are the posts that do the best. And it's funny because you see that all the time, is that, and I have one of my clients, we did this, like we did like a really silly little video and we got a huge brand deal out of it. Just because, and it was totally just like them talking about a product that they loved. And then that brand, we tagged them in the video and they messaged us. They're like, hey, we want to send you, all this product. Plus like, here's, our budget for the project. Like, are you interested? And we're like, sure. And I think that would not have happened if we were like curating the videos and say, nope, this doesn't look great. This wasn't on our shot list, so we're not going to film this video. Like, I think that's really one of the really important things, is knowing that whatever feels right to you, if you have the messaging there and you know what you and even the brand values, like if you know what you're trying to communicate, it doesn't matter the execution if it's perfect, but you can always go like put it out there, get the data, get the insights, and make the mistakes so that you can, I don't want to say perfect it, but so you can improve it as you go. Because you'll never know what type of content resonates with your audience if you don't post the content.
Yes, so true. Who do you work with? Like, who is your ideal client?
So my ideal client is somebody who, it's actually so funny because everyone says like niche down. I've been in business for 3.5 years, and we've built the business to multiple 6 figures. We'll be scaling to 7 figures, and we don't have like a niche. We work with anyone who is in a service-based capacity that is a mission-driven entrepreneur. So somebody who is, they have a business, they already have some kind of, they're generating revenue, and they want to make an impact in the world. They want to change. Their service helps people. And so as long as we feel like, we are aligned in the sense where, we're trying to make the world a better place, we're trying to help people, we're trying to be of service to others, then, we kind of feel it out that way. But I'm not somebody who says, okay, I only want to work with doctors, or I only want to work with lawyers. It happens to be that is mainly our clientele, because if, when we're talking about service-based entrepreneurs, we work with a lot of business coaches and doctors and lawyers and people in the allied health space, a lot of like med spas and like estheticians. Like we do get a lot of those clients because we are in that space. But then we also work with interior designers and luxury home builders and landscaping companies, pretty much anyone in the service-based industry that is, aligned in the vision of the work that they do has a huge impact on the people, and they're looking to change their lives.
Awesome. And then how do you help them? Like, what offers do you have?
So we work in a couple of different ways. So we do content creation, we do full service social media management, and then we do consulting and coaching. So really, when it comes, like the main offer I would say that like people generally want, especially in the stage of business that we serve, is the done for you full service social media management. And so in that, what we do is we have different kind of tiers where it's based on deliverables. So if a client wants, like X amount of content, then, they choose the package that way. But basically what that is, it's totally done for you. We create a strategy, we create the content, we create all the captions, we keep an eye on all the hashtags, we write all the copy for them. We create the graphics, we give them creative direction in terms of what to film for reels, for video content. And then we go out and we execute it. We post, we do the scheduling, we do engagement, really everything that you would need done for running a social media account. Then a lot of those clients also like to add on content creation. So what we'll do is we'll spend a day with them. We'll do a full kind of, and not a photo shoot, but it's like a video content shoot essentially. And we'll go and we'll plan out in advance a whole bunch of different content ideas. We'll film with them. If they're, if they are a business coach, for example, we'll give them scripts. We'll tell them what they need to say. We'll come up with all the ideas, all the things. We film, then we edit. And then if they're an existing client in full service social media management, we'll just give that to them and we'll use that content. But other clients who are starting out and maybe they don't want full service social media management, they just want somebody to actually create the content for them, they can buy that one off and we'll do that for them as well. And then we also do consulting. So anybody who's looking for strategy, or if they want another person's eyes or an expert eyes on their content to make sure that it is relevant, that it makes sense, that it is good for them, that it actually is going to help them achieve their goals, then we do a lot of that in consulting. Then we do consulting also in like a 3-month container for anyone who's like, I am ready. Like, I just want to get this strategy. I want to master Instagram. I want to master TikTok. I want to master LinkedIn. And I want a strategy to do this. That's all done in consulting.
Awesome. Those are great offers and really covers, I think, everything that anyone would need in terms of social media.
Thank you. Yeah. And then also I want to say, like, these offers weren't all around like since day one in the business. Like day one, when I started the business, I was doing like everything. Like they weren't refined in that way. They were like, I do social media management, but a lot of people don't understand the difference between like social media management and website design. So like, and I have skill set in those areas. It's not what I love, but I was doing a lot of random odd jobs for people in like in the digital space as I was starting out. But that's, I think, also how you come to refine your offerings, is by doing and learning and seeing what you like, and then really focusing on that and moving away from the things that aren't necessarily, what it is that you want to be doing.
Yes, I did the same thing, where the offers I have now are so different than when I started. My business is even a little bit different. Like, things change, things are allowed to change, you're allowed to grow with your business. So I love that you really point that out. The last question that I have for you, this is how I start wrapping up every podcast that I have, is I would love it if you could share 3 action steps that the audience can start with today to grow their social media strategy or their business or whatever it is you want to challenge them with.
Okay. Yeah, I love this. So what I would say right now is really stop and consider, what is it that you as a business owner, you as somebody who's, starting out, or even if you're established, what is it that you stand for? Identify 3 points. It doesn't have to be a whole list of 10 things. Think of 3 things that you stand for and come up with messaging around those things. So, you can really work those into content pillars, because a lot of people, will say, okay, I don't want to get into it, but a lot of people will have like their own thing about like content pillars and what do I talk about. But if you can identify what you care about and what you believe in and have those as pillars, then you'll never really have a problem coming up with content, because you can just kind of rinse and repeat it. You can have these as like topic ideas and then come up with different ways and different formats to produce content around it. So that's going to be number 1, is stop and think, like, what do you stand for? Number 2 is go out and find who your ideal client is, or your ideal audience, and start to think about, how can I create content that speaks to them? What can I do that is going to help them, that is going to be valuable for them? And it doesn't have to be 3 tips to do this and 5 ways to do that. It can literally just be sharing something of yourself that you feel is true to you, links to those messages that hopefully you're doing this in order. It links to the messages that you just kind of came up with, and really allows you to express yourself. And then I would say number 3 is really start experimenting. Don't get caught up. Don't allow perfectionism to kind of hold you back. Don't allow, the fear of what would happen if people really truly saw me and understood what it, if people are going to, make comments about my content. Don't get caught up in that, because any successful social media strategy is totally built on not necessarily trial and error, but it is built on putting something out so that you can look at the data. It really is a numbers game at the end of the day. You won't know what type of content works, whether that is for visibility, for conversions, for authority building. You won't know what content works if you don't actually just go and do it. And so I think that's one of the things that can really be helpful, is just start. Don't wait for the timing to be perfect. Don't wait for the content to be perfect. You need to start to actually get information so that you can see, okay, when I post this type of content, this is the response I get. When I post about this topic, people engage with me. When I post in my stories with me, like if I'm actually physically speaking in my stories, I get higher engagement. If I post a photo of myself, I get lower engagement. You want to look at all those things because it's going to be different across the board. So I can't just say, oh, like this generally does well. Look at all the things that you're doing. Look at the numbers. Look at the analytics. Look at the insights. And then if they're positive and you want to see more of that, then guess what? Keep doing more of that. And then you rinse and repeat. And that's how you come up with your formula. And that's how you become successful on socials, because you realize what works, what resonates, what actually activates your audience. And then you just keep creating more of that. And that's how you really see success on social. So hopefully those three things are helpful, because that's what I would say are the three like major takeaways when it comes to your social media strategy and execution.
Yeah, no, those are so helpful and super actionable. So thank you so much for sharing those and breaking those down. So Tamar, where can people find you and connect with you?
So you can find me, I love Instagram. Instagram is my favorite platform. So you can find me at Lyons Digital Marketing on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, and that's where you can kind of get more of my unfiltered, more business and sales and marketing tips, and also just like life and entrepreneurship. So that's going to be on my LinkedIn, and you can connect with me there at Tamar Lyons on LinkedIn.
Awesome. I will put all of those in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have loved this conversation, and I love all of your hot takes that you shared and really just all the information. I think that this episode was super valuable to really a lot of people at different stages of business.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, no, I always love talking all things social media. And yeah, if this could help one person, it really is, the greatest impact that it could have. So thank you so much for having me and for this conversation.
Of course. Talk soon. Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.